Drum roll, please. Welcome back, lords and ladies, to A Morning with the Lord. I'm your friendly host, Lord Duffield, and as all of you, my fans, would be aware, I've been absent for quite a bit of time now. We had, of course, lockdowns and whatnot. Last time I did an episode, I'm pretty sure. And it was right, that's right, I'm pretty sure the last episode was right about the time that we removed vaccine mandates. And then 3 days later, they were all back on because of the Omicron variant. And honestly, I kind of lost hope, I think. Might be the best way to put it. I don't know. That was a devastating blow. Anyway, but we're near back at that point again. I got one story up here discussing England's move to remove mandates in the next couple of days, and here in Australia we're discussing the same sort of thing. But COVID, as a lot of you might know, has been pushed to the edge of our attention, I think. It's still one of the top three sort of stories going on. But as we were discussing in my previous season, Ukraine and Russia have a bit of turmoil going on. We're going to go over that a little bit today, and also increasing tensions with China. Only, I think it was yesterday or the day before, China shot a laser at one of our patrolling aircraft, a military-grade laser from one of their warships, which is some tense action. China have a bit of a history with doing this to us. I swear they just like to remind us that they're there. Kind of like when the Chinese warships just suddenly rocked up in Sydney Harbour one morning. And that's an interesting point, actually, because I've kept this in the back of my mind because it was a very strange sort of unfolding of events, because you had the Chinese here, so they said, to grab baby formula, and they ended up loading those warships up with heaps and heaps of baby formula. And as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure China has bought out like a lot of at least the Australian baby formula industries. There's something about it over there being they have a mad need for it for some reason. But I'm not 100% convinced about that, because it turned out yesterday I heard randomly in a news report that a whole heap of baby formula has had to be returned because it's contaminated and could make you sick. Which I find to be just a little bit coincidental. I know causation isn't correlation, or correlation isn't causation, whatever the hell it is, but I just think that's interesting to note. Now, we may as well jump into it here. I have up the ABC News web page, and I've got some stories queued up, but I just wanted to read a couple of these titles. How could the Queen get COVID? Here's how she spent the first 2 weeks of her Platinum Jubilee year. Now, the Queen is getting on in age. She did pretty well to make it through. I did hear this story mentioned somewhere, because apparently some of her staff had it or something. Managed to get through the palace. Yeah, there was another one here that I found to be a little bit amusing. Where is it? Nope, can't see there. So, alright, anyway, let's kick off. We're going to start off the news recap with Japan's comments on the laser incident involving China in the Arafura Sea. This is from ABC Australia. I've got most of my stories from ABC and a couple from the BBC today, just to hear what's happening over the pond as well. Let's have a bit of a read here. Japan's ambassador to Canberra has backed Australia's demand that China's Navy explains why it shined a laser at an Australian Defence Force plane in the Arafura Sea, labelling it a very dangerous provocation. That's interesting too, because I don't know if it was during my last podcast, but Japan has opened a military hotline with China, which is amazing because they've been forever enemies for a long time. I thought that was interesting to note, but here's them backing us up, which is a bit good. I'll just quickly read the key points here. It says China has targeted Japanese ships with lasers in the disputed waters of the East China Sea. I didn't know that. Yamagami Shingo said Tokyo is fully behind Australia over the incident. So they're the key points. We'll get back to it here. Paragraph 2. The incident has sparked a fresh bout of recriminations between Australia and China, with Prime Minister Scott Morrison labelling it an act of intimidation which put the lives of Australian air crew at risk. Beijing has not denied that its ship lasered the Australian surveillance plane, but China's foreign ministry accused Australia of maliciously spreading disinformation about the event. China's Defence Ministry weighed in as well, saying that the Australian aircraft dropped portable sonar systems called sonobuoys into the water near its ship in a provocative move. Which wouldn't surprise me either, to be honest. There's a lot going on at the moment. It says here, the Defence Ministry also said the plane had come within 4 kilometres of the Chinese ships, but independent military analysts told the ABC that is not usually close for surveillance planes and could not be cast as an aggressive act. 4 kilometres isn't much when you're in a plane. You would hope that your surveillance had a little bit more of a radius than 4K. An Australian Defence spokesperson said at the time of the incident, the closest the RAAF plane flew to the ship was 3.9 thousand metres. This is a standard flight profile for Royal Australian Air Force Maritime Patrol aircraft for a visual inspection of a surface vessel, they said. Japanese Ambassador Yamagami Shingo said Tokyo shared Australia's concerns about what happened off the coast of the Northern Territory, and said his country was fully behind Australia on this matter. I think anyone who has been involved in difference or national security issues will easily agree that this is a provocation and very dangerous, Mr. Shingo told the Australian Institute of International Affairs in Melbourne. The ambassador said China had also targeted Japanese ships with lasers in the disputed waters of the East China Sea, where Beijing is intent on challenging Tokyo's hold on the uninhabited Senkaku Island chain. This is the kind of experience we have gone through before. Our self-defense forces vessels have also been laser targeted by China, the ambassador said. But he also stressed that while it was important to respond firmly to provocations, the Japanese Self-Defense Force Navy was also very careful not to react in an emotional manner. For example, if Chinese Coast Guard ships approached into contested waters claimed by Japan, then Tokyo would be careful not to ratchet up tensions by sending in heavily armed naval vessels into the same area. This is our way of handling the matter in a professional manner without escalating the matter, he said. The ambassador's comments are one of the first public expressions of support that Australia has received from other countries in the region since the confrontation. On Monday, the Prime Minister said Australia was demanding an explanation from China on behalf of several other countries in the region who were also worried about aggressive behaviour by China's Navy. We expect, and not just Australia, but all countries in the region, demand an answer to this because it's an Australian surveillance aircraft this time. But who's next? Mr. Morrison told reporters. But so far, most major countries in the immediate region, including Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, have steered well clear of the controversy and have made no public remark about what happened. Wouldn't expect Papua New Guinea too, and Indonesia. No, you don't hear too much about what they're up to in this whole ordeal. But yeah, so there we go. That's not the entire story, but I think... Oh, wait, I'm only a couple of paragraphs off. So yeah, that pretty much is the entire story. Australia has a bit of backup from Japan there, which is good to see. At least, you know, it's Japan and not just PNG. If just PNG were jumping in like this is bullshit, I don't think anyone would really pay attention. There you go. Yeah, I'm just having a look. I'm going to quickly jump to China accuses Australia of maliciously spreading disinformation. It's about the same story, of course, but let's just read the key points here and see if there's anything interesting. Key points. Chinese authorities said the ships were sailing in the high seas in a fully legitimate and legal operation. Australia should respect the legitimate rights of Chinese vessels, a spokesman said. And a senior Australian analyst called the incident a hostile act in our exclusive economic zone and completely unacceptable. This is funny when you get these two things and like one country claims that they're in their legal rights and the other country claims that they're not. Read a little bit more here just to see. It says, China says Australia's complaint about a laser from a Chinese naval vessel being directed at an Australian military aircraft does not square with the facts. In the first official response to Australian Defence Department reports that a laser was shone from a People's Liberation Army vessel at a surveillance aircraft in flight last Thursday. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said Australia should stop maliciously spreading such information. The Chinese Navy vessel was within Australia's exclusive economic zone and directed a laser at an Australian military aircraft over Australia's northern approaches, illuminating the plane and potentially endangering lives, Australia said on Saturday. A Chinese guided missile destroyer and an amphibious transport dock were sailing east through the Arufa Sea between New Guinea and Australia at the time of the incident, and later passed through the narrow Torres Strait. China's foreign ministry rejected the Australian criticism, saying the ship was abiding by international law. The Chinese vessel sailing in the high seas complies with relevant international law and international practice and is fully legitimate and legal, Mr. Wang told reporters at a regular briefing in Japan. We urge the Australian side to respect Chinese vessels' legitimate rights in accordance with international law in relevant seas and stop maliciously spreading disinformation in regards to China. Ahead of the comments from Mr. Wang, Chinese military expert Song Zongping was interviewed by the Global Times, a state-run nationalist tabloid. He told them Australia failed to tell the public how close its aircraft flew near the Chinese vessels, so people could not tell if the Chinese vessels were forced to take defensive countermeasures. But Dr. Malcolm Davis, a senior analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, told the ABC that China's behaviour was a hostile act in our exclusive economic zone, which was completely unacceptable. And that just to interject for a second, they're talking about they're going through in between PNG and Australia, and through a narrow Torres Strait, which is fairly narrow. You look at the map, of course it's big when you're there, but in comparison to other bodies of water, it's fairly small jump between us and PNG, and that would definitely be a place that you wouldn't want to allow any fucking enemy warships at this point in time. I wouldn't imagine. And I'm pretty sure if they're going through our waters, we got the right to be close. There is actually a picture here showing the path through, and it is very small. I don't understand how this could even be taken as anything but some sort of provocation. Which, of course, we have had our hand in some dealings for a while, trying to keep peace in that region, so this sort of thing doesn't surprise me a great deal. Now, there's just a subheading here saying, what was the laser? Now, this is something I've been interested to see. I haven't seen it yet. So we'll read here and just see what actually this laser was. Now it says, Dr. Davis claimed it was a military-grade laser device, and Defence said an RAAF P8A Poseidon detected a military-grade laser illuminating the aircraft. However, there has been no confirmation of exactly what type of laser was directed at the Australian aircraft. The Global Times quoted an anonymous analyst close to the Chinese military who suggested the equipment was a laser rangefinder. That is the type of measurement tool used to tell distance between objects. All modern warships are equipped with them, but they are also used outside the armed forces. They can become dangerous when aimed at humans, as is shown in the Chinese Navy's own documents. And the Chinese Military Guide for Laser Rangefinders warns that due to the strong energy of the laser beam, it can harm the human eye. It says the laser should not be fired at a human eye, the guide said. This bit here about the story honestly sounds so piss weak. I get it, shining laser, that could be anything. It could be a laser sight, it could be, they could be pinging you to send a missile off. But to complain that the biggest issue was that it could have blinded the pilot, goddamn. It seems just a little bit of a sook. Which I think, they've probably made mention of that just so they aren't trying to escalate any fears. So there you go. They don't know what the laser was, but they reckon it could be a rangefinder. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly pop over to England and about the coronavirus mandates. Now, the title of this article is In England, people with COVID will no longer have to self-isolate, announces Boris Johnson. Despite daily COVID infections still in the tens of thousands, the UK will end almost all COVID restrictions across England. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that from Thursday this week, the country will move to a new phase of living with COVID. This will mean people infected with COVID will no longer be legally required to self-isolate, and routine tracing of people's contacts will stop. Free rapid and PCR tests will also be scrapped, except in the case of older people and for those who are immune or compromised. From April 1st, people with COVID-19 symptoms will be encouraged simply to exercise personal responsibility in the same way as those with flu would be encouraged to be considerate of others. Recently, the UK's COVID measures have been slowly scaled back, with mandatory face coverings in public places and vaccine passports for bars and restaurants dropped last month. Mr. Johnson said that the lifting of restrictions was a moment of pride for the country. We now have sufficient levels of immunity to complete the transition from protecting people. That was a terrible Boris Johnson attempt, but anyway. We now have sufficient levels of immunity to complete the transition from protecting people with government interventions to rely on vaccines and treatments as the first line of defence, Mr. Johnson said. Now, this is a good step forward. It's so good that this is finally wrapping up. And that line, where was it? People with COVID-19 symptoms will be encouraged simply to exercise personal responsibility in the same way as those with flu would be encouraged to be considerate of others. Now, that's what it should have been the whole time. It's absolutely incredible. I know a lady who's a neuroscientist, and she was posting a lot of stuff about COVID, and when it came out that mandates were being rolled back, even she put a post up saying once vaccine mandates are rolled back and it's evident that it wasn't as dangerous as we all thought it was going to be, how then are you going to react? And I honestly hope we don't get a bunch of people going, see, I told you so. I hope we can all just look at each other and go, the people who were absolutely fucking losing their mind of fear can now calm down and go, alright, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe we can leave the house again. Maybe I don't have to abuse others for just saying the truth. And this is the thing, anyone who's listened to my program, I've always said, COVID may be a real disease, a real virus, but we can't react emotionally to all these situations. This is the reasons why we have systems of government and whatnot that remove emotion from the thing, from their problem solving, so to speak, because irrational, people acting emotionally are generally irrational, and it takes someone of authority to say calm down, but that's not what happened the whole time, was it? There was no authorities out there saying to calm down. We were told to be fucking afraid. That's why I still I think WA has only just opened its borders. It's absolutely ridiculous that it has gone on this long, and I am honestly just so happy to hear things calming down, and I hope we can all take from this, some good information about ourselves, go back and look at our behaviours and how we acted, and whether it was appropriate or not, and whether all the hatred to people who disagreed with you was necessary, because hatred's never necessary. And I'm just so glad we might be able to move on, and sense and reason can reign once more. Alright, we're going to jump over to the BBC now for a couple of quick stories. Now, this one is titled Nigerian Airstrike Kills 7 Children in Niger. Now, I'm pretty sure we were covering this a little bit because while everything else has been going on in the world, Africa has had a couple of, I don't know whether you call them insurgents, but there's been a few little skirmishes, and people from certain groups trying to take over towns and what's not. It hasn't been a great state of affairs there either. So let's just cover that a little bit. Have a bit of a read here and see what is happening in Niger. It says 7 children have been killed in Niger in an airstrike by the Nigerian army targeting bandits, a local governor and state media have said. 5 more were hurt in the apparently accidental strike, the governor of Niger's Maradi region told the AFP. Governor Kaibu Abubakar, I do greatly apologise if I'm pronouncing any names wrong. Continuing on, Chabu Abubakar said 4 were killed instantly and 3 died in their way to hospital. State TV said the attack happened in Nashade village. Nigerian officials said an investigation had begun. Mr. Abu Bakar said the victims' parents were attending a ceremony and the children were probably playing when the airstrikes hit them. He said he believed the planes were targeting armed bandits in areas around the border between the two countries, but missed their target and hit Nashade, a village in the area of Madaronfa. Niger and Nigeria have been conducting joint military operations against armed gangs responsible for a wave of kidnappings and killings in the region. Since 2018, Niger has reinforced military patrols along its border with Nigeria to prevent incursions of the gangs. The children's deaths come just 3 months after 26 children aged 5 and 6 died in a fire at a school in Maradi city. That's terrible. But that's the end of that story. It's worth to keep in mind these poor people over there are still putting up with all this shit as well as everything else. Oh, we got live Putin orders troops into eastern Ukraine. I'm going to have to open that. Oh, it's just a page. Live page. Alright. This is live reporting edited by Rebecca Sales. 9:20, there's a timestamp. I don't know what time that's actually referring to. My clock's still on Western Australia time, so it says 9:30 AM, but it's currently 12:30 where I am in New South Wales. Alright, let's read this. One of the biggest sanctions Russia has been threatened with in the event of an invasion of Ukraine is the cancelling of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Earlier this month, US President Joe Biden said the 1.225 kilometre, 760 mile pipeline under the Baltic Sea, which was designed to double Russia's natural gas exports to Germany, would be shut down if Russian troops invade. I promise you we will be able to do it, he told reporters, although German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was more ambiguous at the same news conference. Yeah, good on you, America. We're just going to shut down this pipe that belongs to Germany, and this is us fucking doing this, and they'll just do as they're told. Fuck off! God, there's just some ridiculous shit. And sanctions. Now, I know I've covered this story before in previous podcasts, and I put up an interview with Joe Biden when he stated straight out if Ukraine was invaded, that America would be there to support. But since in the last couple of weeks, as stuff has actually become pretty fucking tense, and it looks like it's definitely going to happen, the story changed from instead protecting Ukraine to sanctioning Russia, hitting Russia with the mother of all sanctions. And now that isn't going to do a goddamn thing. These sanctions, I don't want us to go to war. You know, that is the last outcome I think anybody wants. But at the same time, it's no wonder that it's going to happen when our strength, once we are tested, we fold. Fold like bitches. This is the thing that pisses me off most. The thing that I keep coming back to is that America is meant to be the police of the globe. They are the main force behind UN's forces, and they are the ones after World War II who took up that bloody mantle. We've had to listen to all their propaganda, all their fucking movies coming over here to Australia and wherever in the Western world, and we bought into this fucking idea, and now they just fold like a bunch of bitches. They're the biggest warmongering fucking modern country, basically. You know, they've never been out of some type of war, whether it was the war on drugs. A lot of people don't know. I'm pretty sure during World War One or in between World War One and Two, you had the Mexico War, and that was where they started chucking machine guns on the back of jeeps for the first time. I think that was Patton, maybe. I'm probably getting this all mixed up, but my point is, these guys are the ones who are in charge. Like, Australia's not allowed to have, we're only allowed defence forces. UK, like America, took over all of the UK's offshore fucking military bases after World War Two. They're the ones who are meant to be, keeping us safe from this sort of thing. And as soon as something happens, they just fold. They go from saying we will definitely protect Ukraine to, if Ukraine gets invaded, we're going to let it fucking happen, but we'll try and hurt Russia by making them pay more tax or something. And I'm pretty sure one of my last podcasts covered this, but Russia and China have come out a while back saying that they were going to try and create their own economy. Like, Russia and China would pretty much support each other and cut the rest of the world out of their exports and imports. So if that was to go about, sanctions would do absolutely fucking nothing. So yes, anyway, let's keep going here. It was strongly reported by Russia, which wanted to export more gas, and Germany, which wanted a cheaper and more efficient supply than pipelines through Ukraine and Poland. But the UK and US were concerned it would make Europe more dependent on Russia for energy supplies, and Ukraine called it a dangerous political weapon. There's a bit of a map here of where the pipeline's going. UN Security Council to meet at 2 GMT. Russia's recognition of two breakaway regions has prompted an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, due to take place at 2 GMT in New York. Multiple countries requested the meeting, with Ukraine demanding in a letter that its representatives be able to attend, although it is not one of the 15 nations that make up the Security Council. The meeting will be held in public, but Russia, like the other 4 permanent members, has a veto on any resolutions, so it's not clear what the Security Council will be able to achieve. There's another heading here by Paul Adams, BBC diplomatic correspondent. The heading is Putin daring Western leaders to trigger sanctions. Does the ordering of Russian troops into the People's Republics of Donetsk and Luhansk represent the further invasion that Western leaders say will trigger massive sanctions? It is not yet the full-scale attack that many fear, but it marks a significant escalation of this already dangerous crisis. Few doubt that Russia has organised, equipped and controlled separatist fighters in the 2 areas since the outbreak of fighting 8 years ago, but this marks Russia's first openly acknowledged involvement, albeit in what the Kremlin calls peacekeeping functions. Needless to say, that is not how Ukraine or the rest of the world will see it. But is it enough for the West finally to unveil not just targeted sanctions, but the sweeping package it's been talking about for weeks? Western leaders know it's the only real lever they have, and now President Putin is daring them to pull it. So there you go. So it seems like Putin, even though it's our threat to put sanctions on him, he seems pretty well confident it's not going to affect him too much. Now it's just a quick bit from Ukraine here. It says, "We're not afraid," Ukraine leader adds. More from Ukraine's leader, who says that Russia's actions are destroying efforts towards peace and the existing process of international negotiations. He says that Ukraine wants peace and supports a political and diplomatic settlement. "We are not afraid," he declares, adding that his country is waiting for clear and effective steps of support from its international partners. Zelensky vows that Ukraine will not give anything to anyone. Stay strong, Ukraine. Stay strong. Now, up to the last story here, and I'm going to bring back a person of note with Trump. Now, this heading is titled, "Truth Social Banned from Twitter. Trump returns with a new platform." The story was 11 hours ago by James Clayton and Sam Cabral, BBC News, Washington. Donald Trump's social media platform, Truth Social, has launched in a limited form on the US Apple App Store. The app had similarities to Twitter. Commentators noted Mr. Trump was banned from Twitter, Facebook and YouTube last year, and some early users had difficulties registering accounts. Project-led and former Congressman Devin Nunes said it was expected to be fully operational by the end of March. Some of those trying to register had been told, "Due to massive demand, we have placed you on our waitlist," the Reuters news agency reported. Created by the year-old Trump Media and technology group TMTG, Truth Social has previously been made available to about 500 beta testers. Last week, Donald Trump Jr. shared a screenshot of his father's first truth on the social network. "Get ready, your favourite president will see you soon." View original tweet on Twitter. It says, "Truth Social has already had one update for bug fixes according to the App Store and is now on version 1.01. Last autumn, pranksters discovered a test version of the app website and, according to the Washington Post, adopted the username Donald J. Trump. Twitter banned the former president following the 6 January 2021 US Capitol riot, saying he had broken its rules on the glorification of violence. And commentators have highlighted, among other things, Truth Social buttons and resembled those relating to Twitter's reply, retweet, and like functions. On its website, Truth Social describes itself as a big tent social media platform that encourages an open, free, and honest global conversation without discriminating against political ideology. Mr. Trump wants Truth Social to champion free speech and eschew the censorship of sites such as Twitter and Facebook. It is common view among conservatives Silicon Valley social media companies are curtailing free speech by removing posts and users. "We cannot use any of the big tech companies," Mr. Nunes, who resigned from Congress in December to become TMTG's chief executive, told the conservative Newsmax network. "So we're having to build this from scratch." So there you go, that's not all the story, but turns out Trump has just started his own bloody social network platform. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on here. I think it's funny that Apple are the ones who put it up, because everyone seemed pretty keen on banning old Trump last year. But oh well, I guess them's the breaks. A lot of people are half sort of predicting that he's going to come back and be next president again, which would not surprise me in the slightest. But hopefully his platform does follow this model of free speech. It'll be interesting to see whether he's hypocritical about it or not. It'll be interesting to see if we can even see it here in Australia, because our internet has been pretty well, what's the word? Cut up anyway. Censored. Pretty well censored. I was only complaining last night because, watching YouTube, I enjoy watching a bit of alien channels or people talking about ghosts or paranormal stuff, all that sort of mysterious stuff. But if you go on to YouTube in Australia and type in any alien or paranormal stuff, you don't get suggested any channels, any YouTube channels, any YouTube creators. It's all stuff from the BBC, Channel 7, and that sort of thing. Not even from TV shows, because there are a few, especially American TV shows, covering all this alien stuff at the moment, which is all very interesting, but I have trouble finding it. I'm sure I could probably go to the website, but I enjoy YouTube as much as it's absolutely shit now with the way that we've designed it and changed it and the algorithm works. I still hold out hope that one day it'll get back to that, but who knows? Well, lords and ladies, I think that is it for today's podcast. And I want to thank you for joining back with me here on A Morning with Lord, or with the Lord. And I look forward to talking to you all again. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, ring the bell for any notifications, all that good stuff. And lords and ladies, I will see you all next time.